Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Murder. And throughout October, I will be looking at the scariest episodes of Poirot, Murder, She Wrote, Diagnosis Murder, and Jonathan Creek. I've pulled some lists from the internet to determine what people think is the spookiest episode of each show. And we end our series with Jonathan Creek, the Grinning Man. Or as I like to call it, that time I would have definitely died. We begin the episode with an old-timey documentary about Jacques Futral, who invited some bigwigs to his redonkulous house, where apparently the attic room was haunted, and he challenged his rival Eli to spend a night up there. Everyone else locked the guy in and kept hold of a key each, only to find the next morning he had vanished, leaving behind his clothes and a strange green substance, and the mystery was never solved. Spooky. And into the credits we go. Joey Ross is interviewed about her ability to solve impossible crimes with her most 2000s looking website, watched by Jonathan before he switches to Adam's show that's getting slated and then gets a phone call about it. Joey meets her friend Mina, who invites her to a party, only for them to get a flat tire in a rainstorm, which Mina doesn't help with, causing an argument. A car pulls up and a guy offers to take them back to his, which Mina quickly agrees to, but he appears to already have a passenger. Glenn drives them to the Futral house, which is now owned by Lance Gessler, who invites them in, while Glenn unloads the mannequin copy of Elodie for the magic act, and while she is friendly, this woman glares. Jonathan runs into an old friend, Nicola, who Carla had told he died, so they grab some dinner, and Lance's mother rants about cynical people, and Glenn starts telling the story of the attic room.
No one who spent the night there has ever survived to tell us.
And basically, after Eli back in the 30s, when Constance's dad owned the place, 6 more people had spent the night in the room, only to vanish without a trace. Joey can't find Mina as she's creeping around with Glenn and noses at the haunted attic room, where she spots a hideous painting known as the Grinning Man that's worth a fortune. And she and Glenn start making out. You're going to get some sort of infection from that bed. When Glenn realizes this, Mina sulks and decides she wants to test the room, and he reluctantly locks her inside. Mina adds some extra locks on the inside, as well as a chair, as the storm rages outside. And the next morning, Glenn goes to let Mina out, who Joey once again can't find, only to find himself locked out, so he breaks down the door and finds she's vanished. Joey walks in on a magic rehearsal that's not going to plan, as Glenn rushes up to tell her the news, and they all go to investigate, where Constance suggests asking Jonathan for help. He pokes around the attic room as Joey talks at him in an annoying sort of way, and Constance seems mesmerized by the creepy painting, which she says she saved from a fire a long time ago. Jonathan asks Joey if Mina might be pulling a prank, but she's genuinely worried about her. However, they both agree that nothing mystical happened to her, and Jonathan discovers some dead flies in the bed that fall when he presses down on it. Constance shows him the room beneath the attic, and we switch from real shots of the house to shots that look straight out of Trapped. Glenn freaks out and Elodie says they have to do it. Ooh, girl. And Lance says since they moved back in the 80s, no one has stayed in the room, but he had tried to discover its secrets by looking around. They look through Futral's old things and discover a diary entry referencing Eli's disappearance 2 months before it actually happened, and a note from the 30s about some guy's death. Jonathan and Nicola make out, but he's distracted by the case and attends a party at the house where Lance asks them to keep Mina's disappearance quiet. I love this act. Glenn creeps around with Elodie going after him, so Jonathan spies on them and grabs Joey to follow them to the church, where she mentions a family crypt being under it, so they have a nose. They break into the coffins, although Jonathan is more interested in the Latin, which brings him back to Felix dies, the Latin for happy day. Although Hitler's rise to power doesn't really fall under that category.
Somehow or other, Futral rigged up that room to dispose of a man he loathed and detested. And people have gone on dying there in the same way ever since.
At Lance's magic show, Nicola shows Joey that Jonathan is her perfect match according to a magazine quiz, and afterwards the lights go out in the theatre and Elodie is attacked. Lance and Glenn go looking for her and find a ransom note, which Constance says she can foot the bill for, and they follow the instructions exactly, but no one shows up. And in the car, Jonathan and Constance talk about her father being responsible for 8 deaths. Constance recalls that after Eli's disappearance, disappearance, her father picked up a pebble off the floor, which seems strange, while Lance tells Joey about how he and Elodie met. A car appears, so they rush back and watch someone take the money and drive away, without leaving Elodie behind. And later, Joey stalks Glenn by jumping in the back of the lorry he's loading, which takes her to a warehouse. Joey slips by undetected and overhears a meeting between Lance and Glenn, but why she chose high heels to sneak around in is anyone's guess. She's so loud, but she does discover Elodie right as she gets her throat slit by Lance, who hears her running away. Joey hides in a chest as Lance stalks around and almost discovers her, so she texts Jonathan, who Nicola drives to the warehouse to investigate and rescue her. But Elodie's body is gone, or is it? Nope. She's dead. They call the police, who uncover the mannequin instead, but nevertheless, Lance is arrested, which seems to put Glenn in the clear, as he and Elodie actually ran off to get married at the church, and he's heartbroken that she's dead, seeing as she told Lance the truth.
What kind of shit is going on around here?
Jonathan stares at the ladder, while Joey suggests they spend the night in the nightmare attic, which they run by Constance, who is shook by the whole thing. Jonathan once again notices the dead fly drop, but he brushes it off, and they get into bed to wait out what may come, while staring at the creepy painting. Jonathan says he knows there's a trap in the room somewhere, but they go to sleep, where Joey finds Jonathan missing, but he's just peeing, and they discuss if Elodie was murdered or if Lance was trying to save her from choking. Okay. The next morning, Jonathan and Joey wake up fine, except Joey throws her back out, so sends Jonathan to get painkillers. But he gets distracted by what made them survive the room, but no one else. He talks to Glenn about the position of the room in relation to the house and how it could be somewhere else where they're not looking, meaning there could be a different room underneath. And then the Jonathan realization face kicks in. He realizes the stone was not a stone because all the victims took a bath, and he runs back to the house as Joey runs a bath, which opens up and dumps her in the water, where she comes face to face with poor Mina, and the trap starts to shut. Glenn wedges the bath open and Jonathan fishes her out, poor thing, and he explains to Constance that the attic is further across above a water tank, and the pressure sensor dumped its victims into a gruesome grave. Speaking of pressure sensors, the bed used to drop goo, which ensured Eli took a bath, but now full of flies, it caused Mina to do the same. Constance realizes that the pebble was actually the remains of a bar of soap, and she shows them footage from this morning of Elodie alive and well, which confuses the hell out of them. Jonathan looks at the newspaper in the car and says he solved it, so they rush to the police station where Lance is being released, and they follow him to a house where he's seen with a hooded figure. They hear a scream and rush to the house, where they see Lance attacking one of the guests from the party and take her to the hospital, and Jonathan says Elodie is definitely dead. Delia was Lance's accomplice in the kidnapping and made the fake video as she works for the paper, and released bees into the courtroom to create the story she'd already made up for the video. Delia admits she was in love with Lance, but he couldn't trust her silence, so he tried to silence her for good. And with that revelation, they visit Glenn and Constance, who admits that murderous tendencies run in the family. Back in the 60s, she came home to a house fire where she rushed into the room, not to save her relative, but to save the ugly painting, leaving the man to his fiery fate, which is all kinds of messed up. And she says what happened since is God's way of punishing her.
I'd given birth to a monster.
Glenn sets fire to the painting, making it even more creepy. And that night, Lance's body is found, and yep, add that to the Alan Rokesmith and Frank Geiger nightmare fuel file. Oh boy, that was a lot. And it was terrifying when I was younger. This is a creepy ass episode, from the body count, to the saw trap, to Joey finding Mina, to the painting, to Lance's fate, and to top it all off, I love a bath, so I would have not survived the nightmare attic. Now my skin is crawling. I don't mind Joey as a character. I like her more than Carla, but less than Maddie. But my problem is they immediately argue, just like Jonathan and Carla did, and Jonathan and Maddie did, which which gets a bit tiring, but they worked fine together, and Joey's acting was solid, especially when she was pulled out of the water, and she was helpful to the case, so good job. The main case was a really good one. Nazi sympathizer plotline aside, a room that makes people vanish over the span of 70 years is incredibly cool, and you know it's nothing supernatural because that's not the show's vibe, but also death by bathtub wouldn't cross your mind, so that reveal when Joey gets dumped in the water is terrifying. John Kramer, take note. It also made you think why Jonathan and Joey didn't disappear when they stayed in the attic room, and besides plot armor, my two theories were there were two of them, or the door wasn't locked, which as usual was completely wrong, because I couldn't solve a locked room mystery if my life depended on it. The other storyline was fine. Lance seemed so nice, and I guess that's the point. The facade hid the murderous intent underneath, and even though I didn't mention her before the attack, Delia was introduced at the party as a newspaper editor, and she bought honey, so the whole thing did tie together. And while I didn't believe Joey's wild emergency tracheotomy theory for 1 second, I did think that Ellie's death was some sort of elaborate trick, but nope, Lance straight up killed her. He just got caught in the act. What was weird was Constance and the fire. It's so strange, but I liked her as a character, and how she accepts her life choices as being responsible for Lance's. Plus she brought the clue of the pebble, which was a hint to the attic room's true nature. However, what I didn't bother to include was the stupid pointless plotline of Adam investing in 3D porn and falling for an adult film star named Candy Mountains. It was completely detached from anything else going on, as per usual, and I wonder if Adam as a character in the show was really worth the inclusion. Let's look at season 1, where the character was played by Anthony Stewart Head. He filmed the pilot where he was very much involved in the main plot and then dropped out to join Buffy, leaving Jonathan to only reference Adam for the rest of season 1. This worked absolutely fine, and sure, recast him, but I feel like he should have been a lesser seen character, only appearing when he contributed to the main plot, like giving Maddie a clue in The Three Gamblers or the whole of Problem at Gallows Gate, instead of bloating the runtime of already long episodes. Having said that, I would argue that this is the best episode of Jonathan Creek there is, because it is the ultimate locked room mystery with some great characters and a sufficiently creepy atmosphere. We have a record 10 victims. Eli Mencken drowned in the death trap attic room by Nazi sympathizer Jacques Futral, who wanted to get rid of his Jewish rival. We have 6 unnamed victims, all drowned in the death trap attic room by no one in particular. The trap was just still active. Then Mina, who also drowned in the same activated trap. Elodie, who was kidnapped and had her throat slit by Lance Gessler because she left him for another man. And finally, this unnamed relative who burned to death because Constance Gessler was more interested in saving an ugly-ass painting than him. So there you have it. That was The Grinning Man. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, or come say hi on social media. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit that like button, it really does mean a lot, or consider subscribing if you want to keep investigating with me. Alternatively, feel free to check out my other YouTube channels. Thank you so much for watching, I'll speak to you soon, and keep an eye out for clues.